In today's One Big Thing in Livestock Markets, we're going to take a look at sheep and lamb numbers. USDA released at the very end of January its inventory report on the total number of sheep and lambs in the U.S. And I think it's kind of an interesting market to take a look at, and particularly for Texas. Texas continues to have the largest number of sheep and lambs in the U.S., largely concentrated in central West Texas. So we're going to take a look at that report a little bit. Over the last few years, the industry has faced some highly variable prices, from practically record highs to much lower prices, but this variability and some prices at profitable levels, and also really a concerted industry effort to grow the nation's flock of sheep and lambs has really paid off, with this report indicating that the number of sheep and lambs in the U.S. grew. The size of the flock grew from 2015 to 2016. So if we look at total numbers of sheep and lamb, the total inventory was up almost 1%. The total number of breeding ewes in the U.S. Ewe flock was up about 0.5%. So really some real growth going on. If we look at the total number of sheep and lambs, Texas continues to be the largest state with about 735,000 total sheep in the state. And what's interesting about the Texas numbers is the ewe flock, that breeding female size of the flock, grew by over 4%. So we started out the year of 2016 with 435,000 ewes, which is really a rapid growth in numbers over the year. So I think that's something that's pretty interesting in the report. And if we look at the nation as a whole, the number of lambs held back as replacements to enter that breeding flock grew by over 2%. So it really indicates that there's some more growth yet to come as ranchers and producers respond to the kinds of prices we've had. I think one of the really interesting things in the report, as you dig down even further, is some really interesting growth in the industry, particularly in the eastern half of the U.S. As we look at those states, we often call them in the industry data are often called farm flock states. So in those states, the flocks are typically smaller. Oftentimes they're part of a larger farm that may grow crops, may have cattle, may do a number of things, but also has a sheep flock. So we've really had some really interesting growth. If we look at the growth in the number of ewes in those states, particularly we look at some of the East Coast, Middle Atlantic states. For example, Pennsylvania grew their ewe flock at over 5%. North Carolina grew theirs by over 11%. So we really have some real interesting growth in those states, those farm flock states, and particularly those more East Coast states that are really positioned to take advantage of some growing demand for lamb, whether it's in ethnic markets or in consumers that are interested in a local produced type of product, type of lamb, and they're very close to big population centers and can really take advantage of that. So I think we see some of that fueling the growth in those states. So overall, the report indicated an industry that's growing, that some of their efforts to grow the flock and some profitable prices has led to some growth as well. So I think it's really an interesting look at an industry we may not talk a whole lot about, but as we get into spring and some of the holidays, springtime holidays like Easter, like other holidays that really fuel some growth, springtime's a great time to try some American lamb out on the grill.